Hello, folks. Greg Gilbert, host of Python's Paradise, and doing a segment where I discuss my movie-going experiences and, of course, film reviews. And I'm not going to read film reviews. I'm just going to talk about what I've rated films and what I've thought about films. And I'm kind of starting here with 1996 because that was the film I started film criticism. And I'm going to move forward from 96, but eventually I'm going to go back and go into the past as well. Because I love movies, I love talking about cinema, and I want to go where it all began with, all began with me in 1972 when I was born. First movie I saw in theaters was Pete's Dragon at the drive-in at 5 years old in 1977. Not going to do 1977 just yet, but we are going to do 1996. And I'm going to touch in on January 1996. And I want to talk about 5 films a month. And I've seen a lot more than that, but I'm just going to touch in on 5 films a month. Not necessarily a top 5 either. Because the whole point of having a rating system is you get to see some trash. And my rating system goes from A plus down to F, And, if you got something in the A's, you're dealing with something that's genuinely worth seeing. You're in the B zone, you get something that's mildly entertaining and something well worth seeing. You get into C's and you're talking about stuff that's heavily flawed, might be appealing to a certain group or fans of genre or actors. And you get into the D group, you're getting into heavy negative. And an F might have one thing I might recommend. Like if something's got special effects, okay, but something's got to have more than special effects. So to jump from an F to say a D minus, you got to have more than just one thing, or one performance or one this or one that. And I'm going to go through 1996. We're starting here with January, and the 5 films I picked to talk about, and this is by release date. Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, Dunston Checks In, To It by Sea, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Big Bully. Some of those did not come to our theaters, but and I used to not do written reviews unless I saw something screened, but I'm finding with where we got Netflix and stuff coming in, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to see I'm not getting a chance to see in our theater, and I'm just getting tired of it. So I'm just going through and I'm picking what appeals to me that month. And since D's and B's sound so similar on voice, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go from the bottom up. So the last film I'm going to talk about will be the one most recommended. And with January, at the very bottom, the worst film I'm going to talk about out of those 5 is To It by Sea, starring Denis Leary and Sandra Bullock. And I remember my younger brother and I hitchhiked into town to go see this shit. I think the title is so lame, To It by Sea. I think it's trying to be poetic. It just sounded like toilet water to me. Sandra Bullock was coming off a really good high because I first really became aware of her when she did Speed, which I really enjoyed her in. I enjoyed the movie. My mother and I saw While You Were Sleeping in theaters, and it's one of my favorite romantic comedies. The net went a little off base. Good idea, just not the best execution. But I was glad to see it. Then comes To It by Sea. And I gotta say, this is where she went off the script, so to speak. She and Dennis Leary have absolutely no chemistry in this thing at all. They play a couple of criminals who are trying to outrace the law, and they end up in this little community where she wants him to get his life straightened out, and he's having a hard time adapting to normal life after being a criminal. In fact, I'd say about the one scene I found funny was him going fishing and actually shooting a fish because he can't catch one casting bait, you know. And she ends up going out and socializing with the community and catches a sight of some guy that wants to hook up with her. And I'm like, how did we go from two criminals trying to run the law to this dreary, romantic comedy? And that's where the film lost me, you know. Like While You Were Sleeping had charm. It knew what it wanted to be. This film is going in too many different directions. And it's not that I can't follow it, it's just I found it boring. And again, as I said before, the two leads do not have good chemistry. So, out of the 5 I'm talking about for January 1996, To It by Sea is the worst of the month. It gets a D-. D is in don't see it. Don't rent it, don't see it. Sandra Bullock has done better. Dennis Leary's has done better. Enough said. The next one I'm going to talk about is it's a better film than To It by Sea, but not by much. It's called Dunston Checks In. Now, I gotta be frank. I saw this in up at our old Kmart Plaza Theater, which is 1996 was the last year it was open, and I was actually kind of looking forward to it because I love wildlife, you know, and orangutans that are said to be, I read this, they're the third most intelligent creature on the planet, behind chimpanzees and dolphins, and followed by elephants and ravens. So, an orangutan can be a very entertaining creature to watch in a movie. The problem is with this film, it's a family film about a hotel, which is under scrutiny because there's a guest there that can make or break the hotel. You got Faye Dunaway in there as this high tyrant, grouchy management type. You got Jason Alexander in charge. His son, played by Eric Lloyd, who just came off the Santa Claus, is there, and he comes across this orangutan named Dunston. Dunston is owned by Rupert Everett, who plays a thief. He's out to steal jewels from people lodging at the hotel. And the kid, of course, encounters Dunston, and there's a friendship that's formed, and Dunston realizes he's got to do the right thing, and you know where this goes. The hotel makes for a great location, you know. I mean, the scenery's great. The orangutan is entertaining. You get to see Faye Dunaway get a cake smashed in her face, which is kind of funny to see. But outside that, this film does something that is a major pet peeve of me when it comes to family films. It talks down to adults. You know, you got Paul Rubens brought in as an exterminator who gets slapped around by Dunston and gives a stupid expression as a result. Jason Alexander plays it straight, but he's really given nothing. He looks like he just wants to get back to Seinfeld, you know. But I think probably the only thing I can compliment, besides the hotel scenery, is the twist regarding who really was the person inspecting the place, you know. Because Alexander believes it's one person when it's actually somebody that, I gotta admit, I didn't see that coming, so. But as a family film, family films have got to appeal to both adults and kids. And if parents are expected to sit through this stuff with their kids, you need to entertain the adults too. And I'm not saying throw in a bunch of violence, sex, and profanity. No. You know, the Toy Story films work because they appeal to both demographics there. Dunston Checks In does not do that, you know. I could watch an orangutan at the zoo and be more entertained than what I saw in Dunston Checks In. With that said, Dunston Checks In, better than 2F by C, which is not saying much. It gets a D+. D is also don't see it. Moving up, third on the list is Big Bully. I'm going to say this right off the bat. Out of these 5 films, Big Bully's my favorite. And it's my favorite only because I can relate to the theme of being bullied growing up. However, with that said, it's third on this list because the other 2 films I'm going to talk about are better films. And Big Bully definitely has its problems. It's directed by Steve Miner, which is interesting because he's known as a director of Friday the 13th Parts 2 and 3, as well as House and Halloween H2O. So seeing him go into something like Big Bully was interesting. And there's scenes where there's a stalking sequence through the school and through a gym that kind of reminded me of some of that horror stuff. A little bit misplaced, but, you know, I kind of enjoyed it. Rick Moranis plays the bully guy. He has a kid he was bullied, and he comes back as an adult as an author, and he's being offered a job to teach literature or whatnot at the school. And it's funny because where Rick Moranis was bullied when he was young, in this film his son is the bully. Interesting little turn of events. Tom Arnold plays the big bully. And as a kid, he bullied Rick Moranis. And he got caught in a situation where he was taken away in handcuffs and grew up in a less than stellar environment, you know. And Tom Arnold has harbored that anxiety and anger. Although this is where the surprises come in, because one of the things I loved about this film is that Tom Arnold is not exactly what I thought he was going to be. You know, he does things like shoots peas and stuff at Rick Moranis in the cafeteria and stuff like that, and he does stalk him a bit. What I liked about this film, though, is that it shows you what Tom Arnold's home life is. He loves his kids. He's teaching shop at the school. 2 of his kids are very misbehaved. His wife does not respect him. But he's got one son he's very proud of because he is well behaved and is trying in society. You get the feeling underneath all of this that Tom Arnold's character is actually a good guy, but he harbors some trauma and some pain due to how he and Rick Moranis were younger. And yeah, it was his fault. But nonetheless, he kind of became a better person because of it. There is definitely them getting into fights there at the end of it, which gets into way too much dark, cartoonish territory, which I think the film really didn't need to go into. There's a really good supporting cast of this movie. Carol Kane plays Tom Arnold's wife that doesn't respect him. You got Curtis Armstrong playing a paranoid teacher. You got Don Knotts playing a principal. I'm trying to think, is it Lolita Davidovich? I may have screwed that name up. What bothered me about her, though, she connects with Rick Moranis, and she of course ends up being the love interest, and There was nothing to that character, nothing against her. A prop. In fact, one of the big problems I found with Big Bullies is outside Rick Moranis and Tom Arnold, who I thought were way better than reviews give them credit for, and Curtis Armstrong being amusing. A lot of the cast, it's nice to see them, but they're really not bringing a whole lot to the table. They don't have roles that really complement their talent. It's got a really good premise, but it falls into formula and repetition quickly, and a completely over-the-top climax. But I found myself relating to it on both ends. I related to Rick Moranis because I knew what it was like to be bullied. But I also related to Tom Arnold because I knew what it was like expressing yourself in a way that turned people off of you, despite the fact that you had no other way. Because one of the reasons I was bullied is because I was socially awkward. And so I came off in a way that made me a target. And so Tom Arnold's character, when he was young, had those issues. But yet Tom Arnold's character is he's not really a villain. And I like the fact, in fact, if I could praise anything about this, I love the fact that Tom Arnold's character, Fang, he's actually likable, and you can kind of relate to him. So I give the movies props for that. So I give Big Bully a B minus. B is in bully. It's my favorite of the 5, but I am going to say this: it's not a great comedy, but it's entertaining, so I'll give it that. We're down to 2 left, and up next I want to talk about is From Dusk Till Dawn. I saw that at our old Twin Cinemas, which closed up in 2000. And it's a film that is really 2 films in one. You start off with George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino playing a couple of criminals who get involved in a very bloody shootout, and they end up taking his family in an RV hostage, led by Harvey Keitel as a priest who's kind of lost his faith after the death of his wife. Juliette Lewis plays his daughter, and you got, I forget the actor's name who plays his son. I enjoyed From Dusk Till Dawn, but I had a few issues with it. Number one, the third act, they go to a bar, a very sleazy bar, and it turns out the bar is home to vampires. You get a great erotic scene where Salma Hayek is doing kind of a strip dance with a large albino python draped over her, and she ends up taking a big chunk out of somebody. And the movie lost me at that point for 2 reasons. Number one, I got nothing against blood and gore in a movie, but there comes a point where too much is too much. And for Dusk Till Dawn, I think, during the vampire slaughter scene, a lot of it was gross and disgusting just for the sake of being gross and disgusting. I'm sorry, that doesn't impress me. Another thing that kind of got me, I remember this well. I used to sneak food into the theater. Not so much anymore, but I did then. And there was a moment I turned and reached into my knapsack to pull something out. And when I come up on screen, that was when she was biting a chunk out of somebody's neck. And I was like, what did I just miss? I was confused for about 2 minutes. To factor in that this total shift in the movie's tone, if that's the right word. It's a bloodbath in that third act, and I can't say I cared much for it. I thought the effects work and the makeup work were fine, but I was doing well with the two criminals in the family in the RV. That was sufficient enough, you know. Um, Another negative I had with this film was Quentin Tarantino's performance is horrible. He's a tremendous director. In fact, I've recommended everything he's done. As an actor, he worked in Pulp Fiction because his role was small. Tarantino is great in small doses, but you give him like a co-starring role with George Clooney. George Clooney's going to win that out. Tarantino is just not doing well here, especially with his voice. He stood out like a sore thumb and not in a good way. George Clooney, on the other hand, I really enjoyed in this because it was something a little different for him at that time. So, and everybody else in the film was fine, you know, as well. I think big horror film fans are going to enjoy this film. I didn't enjoy it as much as Big Bully, but I think it's a better film than Big Bully. Therefore, I'm going to give the film, I'm giving From Dusk Till Dawn a B+. B as in boy. B+. Now, the best film of the 5 that I'm going to talk about was one that we did not get in our theaters here, but I saw it a few months ago for the first time, and I laughed my ass off. And that is Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. I like the Wayans brothers. I love Scary Movie, and I certainly enjoyed this a lot, you know. And I love the fact that this film is just poking fun of stereotypes and cliches you see in a lot of films about African Americans and gangs and hoods and all that stuff, you know. It's taken some crack shots at the reputations of films like the Spike Lee films, like, you know, stuff like Malcolm X and Boys in the Hood and stuff like that. You got the lead character, I think it was it Sean Wayans gets dropped. Not Sean Wayans. It's not Sean Wayans. Yeah, Sean Wayans is dropped off by his mom. His mom says she's going to leave, and she kind of a wink at the camera. You know, positive female roles don't do well in these movies. Drops him off at his father, who happens to be younger than him, which is kind of fun. He's got a grandmother that wants to come to fisticuffs with them, and that turns into some funny competition. I love it when he's this woman is cooking, and she says, "Will you go into the cupboard and get that shit?" He pulls out the spices, and on the side of it says "shit." Marlon Wayans plays his cousin, who is often doped up, and the only job that he can get is as a human crash test dummy, which doesn't seem to faze him. Sean Wayans gets into a relationship with a woman that is part of a bad group in town, and she has several children. In fact, when he's warned not to approach her, but he does. And she looks at all the kids and says, "What do you say to the nice man?" And they all in unison go, "Are you my father?" The film has fun with the stereotypes and the tropes, you know. Like, I like it, this guy gets out of prison and they're sitting out planning this and that, even though they're out. It's a very smart movie, and I love the fact that the Wayans brothers are able to look at a lot of these stereotypes and say, you know, some of this stuff is true, but you're only getting half the picture. and they're just playing with it, I found this movie to be extremely funny. I had a fun time with it, and that's why I pick it as the best film of January 1996. I give it an A minus. Excuse me. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of slapstick comedy and parody. So there you go. So going on the list, Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood gets an A minus. From Dusk Till Dawn gets a B plus. If you're a big horror fan, check that one out. Big Bully, which is my favorite of the five, gets a B minus, but certainly it had some problems. There's a difference, folks, between what the best film is and what your favorite. They can differ, because you get things like guilty pleasures. And Big Bully, not a great movie, but it's an entertaining flick, And so a B minus for that. Then you get into negative territory. Dunston Checks In at D plus, and the worst film of the five that I highlighted here, To It by C, D minus. Chuck that film in the fucking ocean. That is January 1999, January 1996, folks. Stay tuned as we move into February 1996 with 5 more films. This is Python signing out. Don't be a menace, folks. Watch the film while drinking your juice in the hood. Peace out.